Hello, film friends, friends of film, and everyone in between. Welcome to the Film Folklore Podcast. I am Jed Props, and I am joined today by Zoe Props.
Hey there.
And, of course, Mr. Justin Sound.
Hi.
Joe, still MIA. I believe the latest we heard was that he was with Nosmo King and climbing Machu Picchu. For any Carmen Sandiego people out there. And where's Chris, Zoe?
Chris was throwing something away in one of those bottomless pits, and he's fallen in.
He's the Aussie Smith.
And I think he's hoping that, it'll just come back around, shoot him back up, but he's just kind of floating.
Yeah.
Maybe screamed for the first 30 minutes and is now
well,
just fallen.
If it's the Ozzie Smith softball and he's falling down that hole, I love that he's screaming, but then stopping to take a picture still.
Yes. Well, I imagine that his phone is just out of reach.
Oh, yeah.
Like it fell first, so he can't quite get it. So he's not even to look at or anyone to call.
Oh, my gosh.
But I imagine service isn't good down there.
I would say, Chris, we hope you're okay, but Zoe just also proved that you can't hear us. So, oh well.
He's fine.
Anyway, I'm really excited about our guest today. This is someone known a long time, and he's got a lot of great insight. He has worn a lot of hats, and he still does. And before we get to him, we'll kind of allude to what who we're going to be talking to today. But so let's talk about some places we shoot at in our world. They can be small. They can be upstairs without elevators, which always sucks. They can even be hazardous to some degree. And I brought up the hazardous thing because we do technically have something in our contracts called hazard pay, but I've never understood how we get it because I've never received it. And I've definitely worked in some shady places. Like, have y'all worked in some pretty questionable? I think we all have by now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you're that night or the next day, you blow your nose and it's just black.
Yeah. Yes.
Or if you're wearing a mask at work and you take your mask off and it's black. And you're like, huh.
You look like you had gone chimney sweeping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little scary.
I think there's two types of dangerous places, and especially in New Orleans. You have the crime dangerous, which I've been on those types of sets, and then you have the environmental dangerous.
Right.
I've been on a set. I was on a set last year where there was a drive-by shooting, and I had bullets fly by my head.
Oh my God. Oh, that's right. You had actually told me about that.
Yeah, and then those aren't preferred.
Yeah.
I think I remember hearing about that. It was on the quarter.
Yeah, it was in the Bywater. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on Crisfold now.
Because we were filming right down the street from you guys. And we hear about that.
Wow.
And so that's not fun. But then there's the dangerous sets that I actually do have a lot more fun with, and that's like going out into the wilderness kind of stuff. I actually really like doing that stuff.
That's cool.
I find it it's a challenge, and it's but I enjoy being outside and that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, like swamps, particularly, that kind of
swamps can be cool. It depends on what we're doing exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's certainly a cool version and a not cool version.
Right.
The not cool version is nowhere good to put your equipment. Everything is soft ground. You're just getting messy.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a lot of water safety that day, so that means there's a lot of guys in boats and the gag is technically on the water, but you're on a very weak ground shore nearby.
Rolling carts over smushy ground sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I guess but between that and or versus pea gravel, I don't know, maybe I'll take the mushy ground. That's hard. I hate pea gravel.
I don't know.
Pea gravel is just, I mean, I understand why they put the pea gravel down so that the soft mud, isn't a factor. But the problem is now you're pushing through pea gravel that your wheels aren't turning. So you're just like, it's like pushing a sled that doesn't move very well.
Yeah.
There's a place here in New Orleans that we don't shoot in any longer for a few different reasons, but it's pretty infamous. And it's a former coal power plant that is down by the river. And if you're crossing the Mississippi River Bridge, the main bridge from downtown across, you can't miss it. It's gigantic twin smokestacks. We've done a lot of movies in there, and I couldn't even tell you. I think I've been in there 7 times ish, something to that effect. We did part of Apes in there. We did a part of Oblivion in there. Even Daddy's Home, we shot a piece in there that is bizarro to think about. It's a cool building. I'll say that first. There's a reason that we're in there. But it's also an incredibly dingy place that is falling into, beyond disarray, as it's been dead for a long time. And it's just, every now and then things are falling. You got a falling debris hazard. In addition to to what Zoe had said, you start blowing your nose and black stuff is coming out, and that's not comforting.
I saw it on fire one time.
Not shocking.
Walked outside of the office and I'm like, oh, the power plant's on fire.
Yeah. Hey, power plant's on fire. But for several reasons, we're not in there anymore. Part of it's new owners. Part of it's just it's gotten to such an unsafe point. And now the city's trying to figure out what they want to do with that area, and that's a whole other thing. But we never get hazard pay. This is something we need to talk to the union
I don't
about.
even know that was a thing.
Exactly.
This is the first time I'm hearing
Exactly.
of it.
Exactly. And I used to, in fact, I had a joke that one day I'll write a memoir and it'll just be called I can't remember which place gave me cancer.
Yeah.
It's just about all the horrible locations I was in.
Yeah.
I thought there was some talk about hazard pay when COVID hit. Was there not?
It did come up in conversation because yet again, that's another thing that you would think would constitute hazard pay.
Right. Or close quarters.
Yeah, or a crime area where bullets are flying by your head. Let's say there's a world where you got hit by a bullet because of something insane happening near your set, and then you're with an EMT or something going, do I get the hazard pay now?
Yeah.
And then the EMT is like, sure you do, kid, sure you do, and then you expire. So that's dark. But anyway, so the reason we're talking about locations is because we have a location manager today, and I for one love the location department just because they do all kinds of insane stuff that people don't really typically know about. So without further ado, let's welcome Jimi Locations. Jimi, welcome.
Welcome, Jimmy.
We are talking with Jimi today, and Jimi Locations. You are location manager, amongst other hats that you wear. And welcome. Thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I guess to kind of get things kicking off, kind of talking about when you were growing up, did you, were you kind of like a film buff or TV person before you were even in the industry?
I liked media. I'm the last of 6, born and raised in Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
And so by the time I was growing up and so forth, I got to spend a lot more time with my father than, let's say, the first 4 or 5 siblings that I have. So we went to the movies a lot.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I went to see Mad Max with my dad at Oakwood. I remember those things. So he liked shoot 'em ups, as he called them. So we would go see shoot 'em ups and stuff like that. So I had that relationship with my dad. My dad was somewhat of a storyteller in his own right. He was a businessman. That's how he made his money and his living and took care of his family. But if you ever remember sitting at dinner with your family, I know that's a concept that most people don't know about these days, but we used to have dinner, and my dad and my sister, who's 3 years older than me, he used to make a point of, so tell me about your day, tell me a story. So we would, before we could eat, we had to tell a story about what our day was, or else we weren't, it would take a long time to eat. So anyway, that whole storytelling thing. But it wasn't until I went to Southeastern and Hammond and I took photography, and started to mess around with film and stuff like that. We had a VHS. I remember a Zenith VHS thing that it was corded, you know, it wasn't wireless, it had a cord. And we made like television shows, me and my sister and stuff. So we did that kind of stuff. But I had a whole lot of other things that I was involved in. You know, I was involved in sports, you know, I had a dirt bike, you know, so I was outside a lot. So yeah, but you know, I do contribute my father into the storytelling that I find myself into even today as a location specialist, or and you know, someone who scouts regularly to put images in front of lenses. You know, I try to put myself in other people's shoes. So we often are told, "Hey, shoot it like you would a director." You know, to me, there's two styles of shooting location photos. You shoot it to encompass everything, wide shots, four corners, that kind of thing, so there's no mystery about what the surrounding environment is, or you shoot it, you know, as if like, you know, the director. And you'll get that request every once in a blue moon. But other than that, you're just shooting big wides and kind of showing what is available. And that's our whole thing is we show options. You know, we open up the doors and show options when it comes to that stuff.
No, when you say you're shooting it, this is when you're looking at the space. And
When I'm scouting it, yeah.
You're using maybe your phone.
These days I do. I used to have bigger cameras and lenses,
Yeah.
you know, back in the day. I mean, back in the day we used to shoot film and we would tape up our photographs in these folders. And it used to be like an accordion kind of thing. Like you would tape up a panoramic of single frame images.
Yeah.
You know, and it'd be to do a panoramic of an environment and stuff like that. So, you know, I started, and that's the technique that was widely used until we got into the digital age. And then from the digital age, our iPhones and our phones, the cameras just became so good. It just made sense, you know. I mean, I even FaceTime scout sometimes, where you know, you have an iPad and you put that creative on the other end, and you're literally showing them the space. So, I mean, you just kind of, you know, evolve with whatever tools can come your way to make your job easier. I mean, GPS on an iPhone can tell you if there's a swimming pool in the backyard very easily.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
You know, when you're looking for swimming pools.
Yeah.
So, you know, you know, everybody develops their own techniques and so forth. I try to put myself, you know, when I'm doing the creative stuff for my job, which is the scouting and working with directors and other creatives, production designers, producers, you know, sometimes one of the first things they'll ask is what we call a lookbook. You know, hey, here's the script. We're really worried about this really big location here where we spend most of our time. You know, do you have it? You know, and if you've done it for a bit of time, then you kind of know it's in the back of your head, you know, or you start asking other people. That happens too a lot.
When you were talking about scouting a lot of buildings, it just something that popped in my head. But I mean, probably the majority establishing shots are exterior buildings. I mean, especially if you're talking TV, where like maybe like if you think Seinfeld, you always have the shot of the diner, and then you're going into the stage version, which is their diner on a set.
Yeah.
But you always have these iconic shots to kind of like get you into the scene or something like that, you know, or maybe it's as simple as the actors walking into the building or something.
Yeah. I actually call that entrance and exits in iconic buildings, really.
Yeah.
And that to me, you know, is a technique. For instance, I did this Van Damme movie where they shot the whole thing in Bulgaria, except for a couple of weeks here in New Orleans. Now, they came here in New Orleans prior because the script, it takes place all in New Orleans, right? But it was one of these kind of, it wasn't Millennium Films, but Avi Lerner was involved. So he's got a studio in Bulgaria, so he does a lot of stuff there because it's really cheap, right?
Yeah.
So what they did is they came, they scouted, they found a house, very New Orleans house. They measured the windows, the doors, built the interior of that house in Bulgaria, shot all that interior work, came back to New Orleans, had actors in enter that house, exit that house, different script days, different wardrobe changes, that kind of stuff. And we also shot some iconic New Orleans stuff to tie it all together, you know, put them in cars, have them drive by Jackson Square, something like that, you know, which is the most photographed, you know, shot of New Orleans.
Yeah, when you think about the cathedral and the Andrew Jackson statue.
And a lot of times we're asked and requested, look, you know, I want that one frame to feel and taste like New Orleans, you know, and so the French Quarter can give you that because it's so iconic. So, but yeah, entrance, exits, and iconic places, you know, we do that quite often, you know.
That's you bring up the French Quarter. We mentioned it in another episode, but a lot of people that are familiar with both, they kind of refer to New Orleans as like a smaller Times Square as far as shooting goes. And could you speak to that a little bit as far as like the location and mapping of it?
Well, let's look at it. Let's zoom out and look at New Orleans as a market as a whole. It's a small market.
Right.
You know, population smaller, traffic smaller, everything. It's a microcosmic of something, you know, that is just one neighborhood in LA. You know, LA so sprawling, right? And you got New York proper, you know, well, we all know what that's all. That's urban sprawl and so forth like that. So what New Orleans and the surrounding area provides is good for what we call cheating. You know, we cheat for a lot of different places here in New Orleans. You know, when I did the television show Claws, that's South Florida. It's not a stretch because we're subtropical environment ourselves, you know. Throw a few palm trees in there and you're selling the idea, you know. Right. When we shoot New York, you know, we know that we have to shoot it pretty much downtown, you know. So you find those close-knit buildings, you take over an intersection or so, you know, you throw a New York City cab, you know, on the corner there, you know, throw some steam coming out of, you know, one of the things out of the ground, a manhole or something like that. You got New York City. So, you know, and the surrounding areas give you what I call Anywhere USA. Go down Veterans. Veterans Boulevard is Anywhere USA right outside of, you know, usually the downtown area. So we have a lot of looks. I will tell you, though, that over the course of my career, it's not always the looks that drive people here to New Orleans. You know, often I've caught them, producers and so forth, whether it's commercial or features, that, you know, hey, basing out of New Orleans is not a bad thing. There's the other stuff we can do, you know, outside of working and stuff like that. The food, you know, the people, the, you know, partying, whatever, it floats your boats, swamps, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Come for the swamps.
The swamps. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, how many times we're filming in the French Quarter and I get approached, is this the originals? You know, even though they've only shot like, you know, a handful of episodes over the course of the run of that show, you know. NCIS was the other thing, you know. Is this NCIS? So we just started saying, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. You know,
Sure. Why
I
not?
told everyone we were filming The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
No
So
zombies.
that just gets you into a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
You know. And,
As PAs, we were kind of trained to say mayonnaise commercial was always like the old go-to. It was a blue plate
until
commercial.
people started asking what brand.
Yeah. Blue plate, obviously.
Yeah, blue plate helmets. You know?
Yeah, I used that once and it backfired. This person was way too interested. I was like, you know what? I'm never using it.
And the whole idea is to get them to shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
Move on.
Yeah,
Be
yeah.
quiet.
Yeah.
You know, for somebody who's actually had to do some work in Disney World in Florida, when I was interning in film school, I had to keep kids away from Tigger. So that was the beginning of my working with background and pedestrians in the wild. You know, it's like trying to keep little kids from Tigger is like trying to distract drunks in the French Quarter until you yell cut. You know?
It's very similar.
Locations is one of my favorite departments because y'all have to deal
lie
with.
to me.
No, this is straight truth.
They're always telling you where you can't park.
Well, I don't have a problem with that because the Teamsters are always going to put props next to the PMO, so that's fine.
Yeah.
We're used to that. But And that's not y'all. That's transpo.
I'll give you a secret. If you're really nice to them, they might put you at the front of the line.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and if you're lucky enough to get a cavalier enough driver, that's another thing that they might just be like, "Nah, I'm just going to go ahead and get in the caravan early." And you're
Yeah,
like,
they see a lot of different departments doing a lot of different things on different shows. That's the thing about, that. So I will say that I've worked with several captains, that if you're organized and you're really good at what you do, there's this kind of respect thing. So they will kind of help you. I had a show recently where the captain really enjoyed watching the grips. They were really organized. They got in, they got out, and this and that. And so he'd always put them at the head of the line. Whereas the electrics, he's like, sloppy,
well, y'all have to deal with so many aspects of the public, and you have to make a lot of crazy deals, a lot of last second deals. You can maybe speak a little bit to the classic stereotype of the lawnmower. But oftentimes, because you also have the police, as an extension that helps out, that you're kind of a problem solver for the physical location that we're at, as well as the scouting and everything else.
We are the public relations department.
Right, that's a good way of putting it.
This phrase I'm not too keen on, but the face of production, if you will. We're the first in,
Nobody wants
first
to be that.
out. In order to bring people into what I do and explain what I do, when I'm talking to homeowners, business owners, residents, Joe citizen, Jane citizen, is that the locations department has one leg in reality of how things work, how government works, local, state, the police is under our umbrella, set securities under the locations umbrella, fire watch. I mean, we are the ones that deal with all their details. There's a small little overlap in departments, special effects, mechanic special effects, sometimes uses fire watch a lot because they're dealing with fire. So we coordinate with that department. But they don't order them. We order them. Permits, things like that. A lot of support stuff that you don't see on camera. So that's the two facets of our world. If you're involved in the scouting and the creative part of putting images in front of the lens, and then all the support. So what I tell people is we are the department that is, rooted in reality, but yet we are working with a group that's building a world of fantasy, and sometimes, I sell it to where this is just two talking heads. I'm not going to shoot up your restaurant with guns and stuff like that. But when I do have to come into a situation where we want to shoot up the restaurant with guns, that's a whole nother conversation, and so I like to do my negotiating face to face. You can't, when we're talking money and stuff, it's just an old way. I think it's just a gentleman's way of doing it, a handshake type of thing, which in my career, I have actually done some handshake deals, just to firm up a verbal thing. And in the state of Louisiana, a verbal commitment is just as good as signing your name on a contract, right, especially if you got witnesses. And I've one time had to use that one time, and it worked. So anyway, getting back to, having to deal with the public and so forth, it's a monumental thing. I sometimes also say if there was a police force for the shooting crew, it's the locations department, because a lot of things get dumped into our laps. I mean, we rent the water meters that's used by transportation so you can put water in the washer and dryers in the combo for the wardrobe department, or special effects who's making rain need to attach to a fire hydrant. We are in charge of getting that, for some reason. I don't know why. It's just always been. But if they wanted a cat removed from a tree, I'm sure we'd get a call on the radio, So, I mean, and as you had mentioned, noisemakers in the neighborhood, whether it's a lawnmower, a boom box, a loud car, someone working on their car, construction.
Busker.
And so we're asked to eliminate these noisemakers, no matter how far away they are. Some projects are a lot more demanding, other projects not so demanding.
Do you, mean,
know?
Do you mean some sound mixers are more demanding?
I actually was thinking about producers and ADs more so, but then the whole sound mixer thing, oh man. And I'm a guy who generally scouts for sound mixers, I make sure that I make everybody aware at a particular location that, hey, remember, we're under a freeway. So no shocker when we're here, or we're scouting it and it becomes a choice and somebody who hadn't been on initial scout shows up and it's like, what about the sound? So I try to answer all the questions I think are going to come down the road prior to getting there. It's kind of like showing a location that you haven't vetted. You might have shot there before, but you don't know if they've sold that property or those people had a bad experience with someone else and don't want any more filming. So that goes to a whole nother thing about file pulls on images that we have already shot. I don't like to do file pulls until I have time to vet them, because then all of a sudden you've sold these images to a director or somebody who just, hey, can you just show me a bunch of pictures and, I'll tell you when I see it. We get that a lot. I don't exactly know what it is I'm looking for, but I'll know it when I see it, So then that means to me, I'm going to be jumping through a lot of hoops, But I have a technique for that. That's another story. But anyway, it's always interesting. It's the same game. It's just different, if that makes sense. We all have a frame about what we're getting into on a certain scale, but it's always different because the personalities are different and this and that, that come in and make the request. The jobs are different. I might have scouted this street in downtown New Orleans 1,000 times, but when I read the script or whatever it is I'm trying to do, I want to go back out there and walk it again because I'm looking at it with a fresh set of eyes about what's right in front of my face or what's being asked of me, So yeah, I don't know. I might have just started rambling there for a second.
No, that's great. Something else too that I think it's important that we point out is when you're scouting these locations, you also have to be factoring in where can the working trucks park? How far away is the crew parking? Where could the caterer go? It's like you have to logistically also map out the surrounding area to be production friendly enough.
Oh yeah, and here's a detail that most people don't realize. So let's say, like recently, we had an off-campus parking lot because we had a lot of extras, and the set was 4 miles away. So you didn't have any of the crew or extras or cast going to the actual set, which was restrictive. You had them going to an off-camp, and then you shuttled everybody in, and you had to cross over a busy highway. It was like 190 in Covington on the North Shore,
Oh yeah,
and it's just like their version of veterans or worse because the speed limit's higher. But anyway, the whole idea is to try to see if the route will be efficient. Or if they're going to have to go an extra mile just to do a U-turn and this and that. So picking where the lot is and how, because, as an assistant director, which I'm also an AD, timing is everything, and commercials, we time out everything. But even on features and so forth, we have an idea of what our call times are going to be because I have to order cops and, it's a cost factor if I don't get that right, or I'm waiting an extra hour because the call time either got pushed or pulled, So timing is everything, and, that's money. And we've all had to become really fiscal lately. And I think that the industry as a whole is going more fiscal and has been traveling since the golden age of filmmaking, when it was a privilege to work in the film industry, as now just more or less just a job, it seems like.
So we want to tell you about Teaser Fest. Burlesque excellence. Immerse yourself in a world of allure at Teaser Fest, a burlesque extravaganza in the heart of New Orleans from January 18th to 21st.
7 showcases, guys. Countless thrills from the timeless queen of the striptease at the Orpheum Theater with live jazz to the avant-garde Vera Tease featuring acrobatics in the same iconic venue.
Sorry, I chuckled. Because I think it's supposed to say varieties.
I think, yeah.
So I have to say.
Yeah, so we should probably do
Wait,
that
what?
one.
Oh,
Yeah. What did I say?
what did you say? What did you
Varieties.
Verities. I would have Cinema Verities.
You're,
I'm sorry. It's like the kid in class you're reading out loud.
no, but I mean, that's.
Laughing at you.
No, I feel like we should shame people more. I feel like it gets people on their toes.
I see you went to the
Varieties.
Derek
Varietos.
Zoolander school for
Yeah,
stuff you can't read good.
variety. Yes. Yeah, varieties.
Verities. Let me do 7 showcases, countless thrills, from the timeless queen of the striptease at the Orpheum Theater with live jazz to the avant-garde Verities featuring acrobatics in the same iconic venue.
Varieties.
Varieties.
Somebody else do it. Somebody else do it.
Hey, minute. You want to take a sip of this?
7 showcases, countless thrills, from the timeless queen of the striptease at the Orpheum Theater with live jazz to the avant-garde.
You're not going to be able to get through it.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do it one more time. 7 showcases, countless.
That wasn't me.
All right,
That wasn't me.
7 showcases, countless thrills, from the timeless queen of the striptease at the Orpheum Theater with live jazz to the avant-garde Varieties featuring acrobatics in the same iconic venue.
It's at the Orpheum Theater, gang. Witness burlesque magnificence in this historic gem, a perfect backdrop for the extravagance of Teaser Fest.
After Dark Adventures, explore edgy, one-of-a-kind acts that redefined late-night entertainment.
Teaser Fest celebrates New Orleans culture with live music, crafted cocktails, and intimate performances.
A festival like never before. Elevate your senses at Teaser Fest, promising enchantment, amazement, and a celebration of burlesque in all its forms.
So get your tickets now. Visit teaserfest.com and secure your place at the hottest burlesque event of the year.
It's become an accountant's game, and
Bean counters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the old bean counters thing,
you got accountants as producers now. You got a very different system of bureaucracy. It's much more complex than it used to be.
Yeah.
You mentioned Millennium earlier. You have these companies that they get accountants to basically predetermine a bottom line, and then they basically know, let's say the bottom line is $8 million. So they're like, as long as we make this movie for $8 million or less, we should have a minimal net profit because we already have a distributor like Lionsgate. So maybe 1.5 mil is our net bottom.
They have made their money before they start filming a
100%.
of media. They've already made the money. The thing about it is their now thought process is, how can we save more?
Yes.
Because the more we save, I was doing Universal Soldier 2 or something early in my
I forgot
career.
that was here, yeah.
After I did Double Jeopardy, I got hired to go to Caddo Lake and Dallas, Texas to go do this. And I remember that the original one had these really cool yellow visors. Well, we were using yellow hunting glasses, because they had decided, oh no, that's going to cost too much in the post world, visual effects and stuff. Hey, check these out. I found these at a Bass Pro. I can get 100 of them for like, $200. Let's put this on Van Damme.
Right.
So, that was one example of me just, hearing conversations about how they can save money, instead of reading about it, actually witnessing it, and stuff like that.
That might have been Michelle's final show, the prop master. She's out of the industry now.
Roland?
Yeah.
I don't
Shout
know.
out Michelle Rowland, wherever you are.
Yeah. Shout out to Michelle Rowland.
That was one of her
stories
last.
about Michelle Rowland. I think I was on the show that hired her for her first production design job.
Oh, cool.
And on College, what was shot down here, we filmed in her father's house, this huge house over by the fairgrounds, and we flooded it with beer, or at least that's what the story said it was. Shout out to Dave Namey, who cleaned that stuff up really good.
Oh,
for me.
Namey.
So yeah, I
Effects
come into
Namey.
houses and I will flood them sometimes, so that's a conversation.
Yeah, I bet.
It's a long conversation with a homeowner.
And that's, I think You had mentioned earlier too, you're the first in and first out. The out part is you got to stay and clean up after.
Oh yeah, restoration. I call that exit strategy. If you haven't planned out, it's almost like a director who should see the movie already in his head as he's shooting it, right? Should be edited. I mean, at least that's my train of thought. For directors, that they should actually see the finished product before it's done, right? Well, I need to sort of be the same way. I need to see an exit strategy. I know what's coming, all right? There's a freight train coming. How do I soften the blow? Right. How do I get out unscathed?
Right.
That kind of thing. Preventive medicine is a huge thing. We throw out layout board to protect wooden floors and stuff. But sometimes, you get a gouge and you have to redo floors, and that's an expensive thing,
Oh, yeah.
especially terrazzo floors and so forth. So, and I've had to repair a lot of stuff. And that goes back to people who get what it is to rent your house to the film crew. Like, you'll have a lot of film crew people saying, I never rent my place to this, da 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 da. I know what goes on.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you're that person that's letting that go on, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, I mean, these are just things. These are things you can fix. I try to make it the best experience that a person has. That's our goal. Those location specialists who really take pride in what they do is they want to take care of their vendors. Their vendors are the people they sign deals with. Everybody else comes and goes. You're staying in this community. Even if you get hired by another location manager or location supervisor who's not from your market that you have these relationships with, is someone I think that you sort of have to protect yourself from. We're an industry that was built on accountability. That's why we're departmentalized, based on the military. There's a hierarchy. It's all about the finger pointing. Who didn't do their job? Some people call it the blame, not the credits.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that was really bad special effects. Who did that? So, if you take pride in what you do, you want to be invited back. And a lot of other crew members understand that if they stand back, it's like that place that you're shooting in last night, you kind of want to go back there. You may not think that when you're there last night, but, we want to be able to return to we want those owners and managers and property site reps to tell other people how good of an experience it was, because, that's just, that's what we do for a living. We create experiences, media, entertainment, we should walk the walk and talk the talk, when we're physically doing it. And that's my approach. I often tell people I'm an ambassador for film in the state of Louisiana. I want people to get what it is they need to get, and walk away with good experiences.
That's awesome. You just brought up two very good points that I want to touch on. One, and I think this is something that speaks to us as workers of the industry and also to anyone in the public that's listening. But it's important for us as crew members to be polite, be accommodating and everything. One, it's just the way you should conduct yourself. But two, it's also what keeps us able to come back to these locations or keep the public happy within reason when we know we're being an inconvenience, like we're locking down a street or something like that, and people are having to detour because of us and everything. So you want, we have to work here and people have to live here. So it's like a symbiotic need to be on the friendly with each other. The other thing, when you mentioned, this is something I think all departments share in common, and it's always the bane of your existence, but it's when things are out of your control, but they're still going to reflect on your department. So like, maybe something goes haywire, let's say with props, or like the prop gets broken and then we have a backup and then the backup gets damaged or something. And you're like, well, I didn't know they're going to be throwing this thing. That was never discussed. So that's a problem because I only have two of them. And then suddenly, if it's in the final cut or they had to make an adjustment, now you're upset because that was a communication breakdown, that was a correctable thing, but instead at the final result, it's now reflecting back to you. And that's something that when you're saying the blame instead of the credits, that those are the things that like keep me up at night, or I have the work dreams about.
They give us anxiety.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, the thing about it is, especially department heads, as I am and as you are, and so forth. You're a performer, and you're asked to perform and deliver, and it's usually right now. And it's not important to them until it's important to them,
Right. Right, exactly.
So we see a lot of that, and our experience, hopefully, lets us kind of be calmer. One of my newest mottos that I like to throw around is no knee-jerk reactions. We get a lot of requests. Let's just think about it for a second before we act, because it just might be a fleeting thought. It might not be, it might not be doable in the sense of finances or other resources, So no knee-jerk reactions, Joe
Stunts and I were talking about that yesterday, saying that, you try your best to never give no as an answer. It's always, let me think about that for a minute, or let me get back to you, something to that effect, because you can just take that moment, problem solve. It's a lot of thinking on your feet. And then you can at least come back and offer options, offer possible solutions, rather than just straight up go like, nah, that's not happening.
Yeah, no, we are in the business of doing things and making things happen. It may not be, and so we have to work through a lot of different plans, and it's most of the time, if not all the time, it's directing by committee. So there's a lot of different voices, a lot of different opinions, and sometimes you have to know when to raise your voice and when not to, and just step back and let it flush out. In my position as locations, I try to halt things. If I know for a fact something that's been requested of me on the ground out in the field, and that's where I get my request. I mean, we're literally standing on a street corner or in the street. For some strange reason, filmmakers like to stand in the street when they don't need to. And my request is always, hey, can we do this on the sidewalk?
He's talking about cinematographers.
Yeah, or scouting. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, one foot in reality, the other foot in world building creative's mind of, I need this, and stuff. So, and I'm invincible. Cars don't hurt me. So yeah, it's a unique industry to work in. I feel very fortunate to be a part of it and to have been somewhat successful in it. It's not everybody's style. I think that even doing television versus doing a feature film. Feature film, you get that script, you get a breakdown. I love doing feature films. And then I got into the TV world, which is a whole nother animal. It's still media. But I mean, you're lucky to get the words. And then they you get the words, and the next morning they're like, all right, what are you showing us? It's like, all right, you really have to, so you hone your skills where you're literally reading the different descriptions of these places and you're formulating ideas.
Yeah.
Same thing with you when you're reading and doing a breakdown, your own breakdown for props. You're like, oh man, you're highlighting the heck out of things,
yeah.
So I'm doing the same thing, based on, I'm looking at what car is in the driveway, for that owner, because sometimes that tells me what social economic situation they're in. We get a lot of scripts where they don't do that kind of description. They just kind of, tell you it's a single family home, da-da-da-da-da. What does that mean? What is the environment supposed to look like? What am I looking for?
Right.
So I have questions too,
That's a good
many
point.
Different variations of swamps.
Yeah.
I once had to tell a video game company, we got a lot of different types of swamps, I want to see them all, Okay.
Right. Yeah. You brought up another good point too, that when you're doing your breakdowns and stuff, and then like in TV world, especially if you're talking about network or like procedural television, everything, they're very fast paced. You have essentially 2 weeks from start to finish for an episode.
It's aggressive.
Yeah, it's very aggressive is a good way of saying it. And so, they're ready to hit the ground running, just like you're saying. And you may have just broken down the script.
We all just got
Right.
the script,
So you're showing a lot of photographs. Oh, well, especially I should say for us, because we don't have maybe the physical item because we got to order it, we got to make it, we got to do something. So instead we're like, here's a picture of I kind of think what we're talking about here. So you just don't have the time to get the physical item. I mean, ideally we
and
want
that's
the
the
physical
initial
item.
approach, let's get the temperature rolling.
Yes,
Let's,
exactly.
it's like, you're lucky if they're like, oh, that's perfect, grand slam, moving on, check that box.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So Jimmy, wrapping up with you, what kind of advice would you like to impart on anyone listening? Could be good, could be bad advice, could be for the public, could be for crew or anyone, just maybe trivial people that like what they're hearing.
Well, that's really broad. Can we?
Sure.
Advice in what? Working in the industry?
Maybe
or just
advice in-
life advice? Because I can do all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be your life coach.
We're gonna bring you back on as a
cheerleader
life
for
coach.
more than one production.
What we'll say,
Sorry about that.
That's the advice.
I love that
I should
you
turn
have
off my
Peter
my
Gunn.
phone when I'm recording things so that I don't bust a
Yeah.
take or something.
Yeah, quiet on
How
set.
about that? Quiet on set.
Yeah, quiet on set.
And I'm really bad at that. My mom's a Cajun. She's a loud woman, and I've inherited that. So, and I don't like to wear radios these days. Those earwigs hurt me.
Oh,
My
yeah.
tendonitis can't deal with it. So I don't know about advice, but this is corny, but follow your dreams. If
Yeah.
you want to be in the business, be in the business. Just keep at it. There's got to be somebody you can meet, to get into that clique that you want to be
networking
in.
for sure.
As a production assistant, which is the ground floor, they tell me, of crew members, it's a non-union position, and everybody's goal is to get in the union and get those benefits. Let me just tell you, unions don't find you jobs. Your friends do.
Yep.
So you can get into one of these little cliquey groups, that reminds me of high school, whether it's the camera department or the locations department. I used to travel with a team, and then, I can do a lot of solo stuff. I can do a photo shoot by myself. I don't need a whole team. I can park the company, find the places, all that stuff. But when I get into bigger shows and stuff, I need to build a team. And I used to have a team, but then, they used to call me up and say, hey, when's the next gig? And I was like, I'm taking some time off. I need to check my head, So I didn't want that responsibility, So now I just build a team as I go. So, like I said, just be persistent too. We all get very busy. And if you've contacted somebody, just stay in touch with them, text them, follow up. Sometimes that's the thing. It's like all of a sudden you're talking about having to bring somebody on and you get a text from totally forgot about them. Perfect. They would perfectly work out, So that happens all the times,
When things are busy too, that's the best time to get in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just have to know when it's busy. But
Yeah,
that's
you
the
just
only
have to know.
caveat. But yeah, I mean, we generally don't have enough qualified bodies to fill all the positions. Just the way there's and we're about to get it again when we come out of all the strike mess. There's going to be a massive demand for content, and then
there will be.
It's going to be a big flood. There's going to be a need for more bodies because there's not enough bodies.
And what have we seen over the last, I'm going to say 12 months, because the strike's been at least about 12 months. We're getting close. Is that some people have moved on. People that we have worked with have moved on to other things, other industries, making money somewhere else. Maybe their side hustle actually cha-chinged for them.
Right.
So they're sticking with that. So
Some businesses have closed.
We were talking about one of my comrades in the location world retiring. hearing.
Yep.
You know, I've been hearing a little bit of that stuff a lot. You know,
Yeah.
So it's a brave new world coming back into it. You know.
For sure.
And, coming out of the strike. And the strike will end. It's just about when. I feel fortunate, you know, location scouts, you know, are one of the first hired. So hopefully, you know, we're a barometer of when jobs start to roll in. But we're hearing a lot of good things, you know, about, look, some of these producers are chomping at the bit too. They want to get to work. You know, just a few people at the top who are standing in the way, and it'll work out sooner or later.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's great. Thank you so much, Jimmy. We really appreciate you coming in, and love to have you again in the future. And good luck. Hope we're all working together soon.
Yeah, absolutely. It was
Thanks,
fun.
Jimmy.
Ciao.
Oh, Jimmy, that was fun. I love talking to that guy. One thing I didn't get to talk to him about, but he had told me years ago when I first met him, was that you would be lucky if 1 out of 10 things you work on are actually any good. And I'm paraphrasing because that was a long time ago. But I will say he's been more right than he probably knew. I think if you talk in terms of quality or something that you feel good about hanging your hat on, like an award-winning program, an Academy nominee, you know, something of that, you are looking at about 1 out of 10. And not to knock the other stuff, but those are more just paychecks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we still do our jobs. We're still professionals. But, you know, I'm trying to think of a good example off the top of my head. You know, maybe that 50 cent thing wasn't something that you were really, you know, stoked about, you know. Anywho's. But would y'all agree with that in your experience so far?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. and I don't ever expect much, but when it is good, or even when you read a script for the first time and you're like, oh, this might be good.
Yeah.
I don't hate this. I
exactly.
didn't cringe my way through. I forgot to read it through a prop lens too. I was just reading it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
This is actually good. So yeah, it is. It's nice when that. It's nice when that.
That's the whole thing about post, is that, you know, we're not really involved in post. So, you know, you're prepping something, you get the script, you read it, and just like Zoe's talking about, sometimes you're like, oh wow, I like this. This is I laughed reading, or I was engaged, you know, reading or something. And then you get into the production of it. Maybe the production of it goes really well, and you're like, I am feeling great about this. And then the movie comes out, and you go, huh, that was a letdown. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't. Well, I don't work in post. I don't know what to say. It was great up to when we left.
Yeah. So now when I like a script, I'm like, well, we'll see.
Temper expectation.
We'll see. Yeah.
I mean, some things I can think of off the top of my head. Tim Blake Nelson wrote and directed this movie called Leaves of Grass that I worked on, and it was very much in the vein of like a Coen Brothers type feel and everything. Edward Norton plays twins. Susan Sarandon's in it. I think it was Kerry Russell. Maybe it's been so long. But it read fantastic. And to this day, it's the most airtight script I ever read and worked on. You couldn't edit it. You couldn't cut stuff. It was so airtight. And like, I think the only thing they ended up cutting was like an art piece that was going to be built, and they just slightly altered it. Everything else was a dialogue adjustment. Production went great. Everybody was happy. Actors were fantastic. Crew did a great job. Really looking forward to seeing this thing. It comes out. It was okay.
Yeah.
But up until then, I was like, this has award potential. This is Tim. You did a solid here. So, I mean, I don't know. One day, if I ever see Tim Blake Nelson again, I can ask him. But yeah, you felt like an opportunity was missed, and that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
But sometimes, you know, you work on something that you read and it is so bad, but it's the best thing to work on.
Oh yeah, that, and then
you know what I mean? You don't
are
care.
absolutely correct.
You know, the crew's great, everything's running smoothly, you're not miserable. yes, the script is
Your opposite.
terrible,
Miserable.
and you won't be proud when you watch it. But it's like, this is all right. I'm like happy.
Oh yeah, I used to love. There was a period in time where we were getting a lot of Lifetime and Hallmark things because this former producer, UPM line producer type, this guy Chris Morgan, son of Harry Morgan from MASH, but he was wrangling the shows that were coming in for a while that was all Lifetime and Hallmark, and even though they're not creatively exciting because everything's very straightforward in those worlds, you're not having to manufacture a cool prop or anything of that nature. They're also extremely straightforward, and there's a mood about them that is very I don't know a good way to put it. Maybe it's almost like it's cathartic because you don't have too many things to worry about. So you're kind of traveling through that project knowing I have everything to have, knowing everyone's here, they know what they're working on, everyone's playing to that thing. And then you get done with it and you're like, I'm not even worried about post because it's going to look like a Lifetime movie.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. You gets what you gets.
Yeah. Let me guess, a husband is a shitty person and no, that's
Or someone's reconnecting with their daughter.
that's the old Lifetime. Old Lifetime was always horrible men stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Now it's like a reconnection, or I did one of the ones I did was Pregnancy Pact, which was based on was it in oh my God, I can't remember where in Massachusetts it was, but do you remember a thing of like 13 high school girls all got pregnant seemingly at the same time? And the supposed rumor was that they had made a pact to get intentionally impregnated. And so this was the Lifetime version of that, you know. So of course it's like, you know, more scandalous and everything. But yeah, I mean, go look it up, everybody. It's got Thora Birch.
Pregnancy Pact.
Yeah. Oh, and Nancy Travis, Nancy Travis, what a gem. She was fantastic. She's an absolute doll. Thora was fine. Sorry, nothing personal against Thora. No, I mean, for me, like I loved So I Married an Axe Murderer. And so that was,
What you're talking about.
yeah, it was like Nancy Travis. That was that moment where I was like, oh, I loved you in this movie and I loved you in this other thing. You know, so I was geeking a little bit,
Yeah.
I'll admit. But yeah, anyway, I thought Jimmy was pretty thorough. I don't know if there's anything we could add to that.
Yeah, kind of, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to, because they have to do some borderline shady stuff sometimes to, like, you know, cash deals and stuff to make that lawnmower guy turn off his lawnmower and things like that you're not exactly getting a receipt for to then turn into production. So
Yeah, I did like his point about how he's performing.
yes,
It is a performance. It's kind of customer servicey. You have to kind of just schmooze people, especially if they're upset in the middle of production, or, you know,
you
everything
need
stopped
to be
because whatever issue
for sure.
it may be. And I've seen these locations, people sweet talk the
Mm-hmm.
angriest, meanest looking person, and then it's all hunky dory. I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah,
you're good at that.
you need to be a people person in the location department.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that absolutely.
yeah,
If you enjoy talking with the public, that would be a very good department for you. If you just like rapping with strangers and trying to convince them that you're doing a good thing there, even though maybe it's like, we're actually renting the house next door, so we're going to be an inconvenience to every other neighbor around there. So those are kind of what we talked about before. Those are the situations where everybody needs to be on their behavior. Everybody needs to be nice. We want to be able to come back to this neighborhood.
yep.
Yeah.
I think we take locations for granted a lot, you know, and we just don't think about how many hats they have to wear, and that, you know, we're all there. We just have to please, you know, internally and the
Yeah.
director, and they've got to please everyone,
Oh yeah.
public and everyone on the production and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, the crew. Yeah, we can be a bunch of ingrates for
Well,
sure.
and-
But,
Just like
I'm,
as
I'm so glad it
as a
that helps
collective.
us, you know, to like kind of remember and
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
with them.
And I mean, they truly are a department that deals with practically every other department. I mean, we could say props more and more deals with a lot of departments, a lot more than we used to. And it's just the nature of how things have evolved. Which for anyone in a hiring position, we need more people in our department, please. But hey, if there's 13 people in the costume department, maybe we could at least have 5 in the prop department.
Yeah, throw a little something our way.
Yeah. They kind of only deal with clothes. We have other things to do. Sorry. Soapbox. I didn't realize I was standing on
Sometimes
that.
jewelry.
Yeah. When it's not the jewelry we're doing. Yeah. Conversation for another time. Anyway, yeah, Jimmy was great. And that's certainly an unsung hero department. So shout out to Locations and the hard work they do. And yeah, Zoe, close us out.
All right. Do you like what we're doing here? Do you have thoughts, comments, questions? Maybe you have an idea or suggestion for topics you want to hear about? Well, you can find us on the intrawebs. You can email us at filmfolklorepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on the social medias, Instagram being Film Folklore Podcast. We have a Facebook group called Film Folklore, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at The Film Folk. And yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.